Hi guys, my name is Kira Lopez of FLA Title Guarantee Agency and the Adelson Law Firm. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Get It Closed. We're focusing on line 2 of the FAR/BAR As-Is 6X contract, the buyer. When identifying the buyer in a transaction, let's consider a few things. Even when you know the buyer personally, it is important to verify the buyer's legal name as it appears on their official ID to ensure correct spelling and avoiding assumptions or the use of nicknames. Let's daydream a little and say you're working with Katy Perry as your buyer. We all know her name. Why would you need to check her ID when writing up a contract? Well, Katy Perry is her stage name. Her legal name is actually Catherine Hudson. Will Smith's legal name is Willard Carroll Smith II. But stars are not the only ones that use their nicknames or alternate names in their daily lives. So verifying your buyer's legal name will avoid the need for corrective addenda down the line. If our buyer is an entity like a company or a trust, we would want to take a look at their documents of formation to identify their legal or registered name. Once you have verified the buyer's legal name, you will want to briefly discuss how the buyer wishes to hold title. If the buyer is an individual, confirming their marital status is important. To continue with our celebrity buyer example, let's now work with Willard Smith. He's a married man, but may take title just in his name. We all know the drama there, right? Or he may want to create a trust or a company to take title in the name of the entity. He's unsure at this time. Therefore, you write the contract as Willard Carroll Smith II and/or assigns. This is where we, as the title company, come in. When we receive a new executed contract in our office, we immediately evaluate the impact the buyer's information and vesting may have on the rest of the contract. Let's consider a few scenarios that might pose problems if the buyers are unaware of what to anticipate during the closing process. In Florida, on the purchase of primary home, if the buyer wishes to take title to the property solely in their name and they're financing the transaction, the non-borrower and non-title holder spouse will need to sign or acknowledge the lien of the mortgage. This is where we will need data. The mortgage would not be valid without joinder of spouse, and the transaction could not proceed if the non-owning spouse is unwilling to sign the mortgage at closing. If this issue is not identified early on, the buyer could find themselves in a difficult position if they're not able to close because of this situation. When a contract is assignable, it is important to consider the effects such an agreement will have on other components under the contract. In the South Florida area, for example, there are a lot of condominium sales which require association approval of the buyer. The title commitment requires condo approval letter matching the intended title holder's name. This means that if the buyer made application for condo approval in their individual name, but before closing they decided to assign the contract and vest title in the name of an entity, the association approval must reflect the approved buyer as the entity. Failure to notify the association promptly may result in delays, particularly if additional documents or new application is needed. Some associations might not allow ownership in an entity's name, and if the assignment relieves the original buyer from liability, it could lead to a cancellation of the contract altogether. We recently encountered a situation where a contract was assignable, but it also included a condition requiring the buyer to sign for the exemption affidavit. We will discuss the Foreign Investment and Real Property Tax Act of 1980 in further detail in a future video. On this particular transaction, the buyer's decision to assign the contract to their LLC prevented them from being able to sign the FRPTA exemption as agreed under the contract. Thankfully, we were able to close on this transaction, but it was quite challenging. Assignability of the contract could also pose a challenge when the buyer is utilizing funds from a 1031 exchange. The examples are many, and we could go on, but our goal is to get you thinking about how the buyer information investing may influence or impact other terms within the contract. As we conclude, remember that we're here to help you because, after all, a solid contract will support the title or roof and everything in between. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's get it closed.